Hey, it's been a while, I know. It's probably gonna be a while again before I see you next. But this video is for Allie. So shout out to Allie. She wants to know how to sand and stain a piece of furniture. So you know what? That's exactly what we're gonna do. So let's go do it. So this mid-century dresser is actually pretty decent shape. It's super sturdy. From the front, it doesn't look too bad, but the top is really, really worn. There's watermarks everywhere. There's some crusty stuff from who knows what, 50 years ago. And the handles on the drawers are pretty worn down. So I'm hoping that I can just do the bad spots, match the stain, and call it good. The more simple your piece of furniture is, the more simple and faster your job's gonna be. If you have something that has lots of details and grooves in it, I feel bad for you. I'm not a very patient person, so I would just say, nope, not today, friends. We're not gonna do that. Even though that dresser cost $20, it's not worth my time because I'm lazy. But some of you are probably geniuses and you can do that with all the time that you have. Not me, okay, not me. But this is a great way to save you some money because mid-century stuff, not cheap. So now I have to figure out how to get this dresser in the garage all by myself. Dylan! To sand, I'm using my electric Ryobi sander. It's pretty fun. I've had it for a few years, used a lot of projects. They come with removable sandpaper, and these aren't the ones that go with the sander. They should have holes in them, that way all the dust goes in here. But you'll see soon that I just kind of create a cloud of dust, which is super healthy. I'm gonna be using Minwax. My favorite stain is Provincial, but I have weathered oak mixed with Provincial, and it really looks about the same. I just ran out of stain and I mixed it together. A clean cotton rag to wipe on the stain. I have some sandpaper. This is for kind of the doors because the sander won't get there. This is 150 grit. This is 600 grit. The higher the number, the smoother the sandpaper. The lower the number, the more coarse the sandpaper is. And you want to start off with the lower number of sandpaper first. That way you really rough it up and get off all the stain, and then, or the stain that was there, and then finish up with a higher. 600, again, I'm lazy. I don't ever get to this point. 150, I'm good. Okay. So one thing that you do want to keep in mind is this is a pretty old piece of furniture and a lot of the finish has been naturally worn off, which means I'm not going to have to spend a lot of time getting the finish off. If you have a pretty modern piece that has lots of shine to it, that's a lot of finish you're going to have to work off. It's doable, it's just going to take you more time. And that's when it might be good to start off with the more coarse sandpaper and then finish up with the finer sandpaper. We are ready to sand. It is hotter than the devil out here. All right, so this is the top of my dresser. It's in pretty rough shape. Shouldn't be too difficult to sand down. I have my Ryobi plugged in. It's ready to go. You want to sand with the grain of the wood. So you can see these lines going up and down. That is the grain. I don't want to go back and forth. It's not that I can't, but if I do it too much and that's the only way I do it, I'm really going to tear up the grain in the wood. Guys, I have sweat in places where it really should not be at all. Like, I don't know, I mean, it should be on my forehead, but yeah, not down there. Okay, I have the top mostly sanded down. I've been using 100 grit sandpaper on my electric sander, and it's not perfect, but the biggest thing is you want it fairly even and not spot sand it. So if there's a really bad spot, you don't want to just sand that spot. And if I wipe this away, that's kind of the unfinished wood right there. And this is where it was really worn. Same amount of sanding. This still has some of the leftover stain on it, which I think is pretty fine. The new stain will be fairly forgiving, but I'm gonna go ahead and take, what is this? 150 grit sandpaper. I'm just gonna go over it fairly lightly to smooth out any little kinks, and then we'll be ready for sanding, or staining, huh? I have my Minwax stain. I'm going to stir it up a little bit. You don't want to shake it to create bubbles. but you want to stir it, and this is how I stir it. I have my clean rag that also has some boob sweat on it, but you did not need to know that. Your hands will be a little bit shaky from the electric sander, like you've had a whole bunch of caffeine, but it's kind of trippy. Okay, so this is penetrating stain, which means it's going to penetrate. A stain with a poly on it, which kind of protects and leaves it shine, that's typically where you roll it or want to paint it on. I prefer penetrating stain, and I really don't use a poly on top. I probably should, but I don't, and you definitely could, but you want to let it dry. Read the directions on your stain if you're using a different brand, but essentially all you want to do is dip your rag in there and you wipe it on. It'll want to sit for a little bit, but usually I kind of get the side that I'm working on. I let it dry for like a minute and then I wipe off the excess. And because it penetrates, it really just soak into the pores. It's a pretty forgiving process. It's not going to be absolutely perfect. It kind of depends on how much you sand. I didn't get down to the bare bones of the wood, so it's leaving some of that color that it already has on top, affecting the stain color, which works out because I really don't want to stain the entire thing. You guys can see already how much prettier it is. And you really don't use a ton. You don't want it to puddle up on you. Like I'm already done. It smells delicious. That was a joke. I did a little bit of the front and I also did the drawers. Okay, I'm gonna let this sit for like a minute and then we'll wipe it off. Okay, this is after it's sat for a minute or so. You can see right here it's a little bit lighter and you can layer it up. So I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit longer and then I'll go in with another coat just along here to try to match this to that. Did you know that when you drop high quality furniture about 2 feet from the air, nothing happens? Like completely stays intact. That's fun fact. I've let this baby dry about 30 minutes. I've wiped off any excess stain. I haven't done the drawers yet. I will use the electric sander on the front parts and then hand sand the handles. Now, here's when you'd want to put a thin coat of poly on it if you want to protect it. This is just holding toys, so I'm not too worried about it, but coffee table, you definitely want to put a poly on it, just a clear coat to prevent any damage to the wood. My sweet Ellie, I hope you found this helpful. If you guys have any questions whatsoever about this process, leave them in the comments below, and you guys can also find a link to my sander down there, as well as any other sanding supplies that I think are helpful. So until, who knows, next year, we'll see you next time. Bye.